Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and today I'm going to show you how I made this rather pretty journal using my new kit in my Etsy shop. It's called Vintage Cornflower. It's a full kit. It includes a template, so you don't have to worry about how you position your stitches and all the rest of it. And that link will be below the video, so have a look under the more information to take you to the Etsy store. Let me walk you through all of the sheets in this kit. There are 12 different background sheets, and these are divided in the middle. So the idea is that they fold in half and they form your pages in your signature, and I've printed these double-sided. I've used 160 GSM cardstock, which is about double the thickness of standard photocopier paper, because it means that you get a nice solid page base on which you can then sew or glue additional things like pockets or banners or any of the ephemera that I've included with this kit. All the colours are lovely and soft and vintage and lovely cornflower blue. It's a nice gentle kit, I think. I've got two different file pockets. One has got a tab, just a space that you cut out of the top, and the other one you can fold in and you'll have a tab sticking out of the top of that file. You fold them in half. And then there are three slightly different coloured tabs that you can cut out, and they're designed so that they will fit inside these spaces. You can print these out on a plain white background, as I've done here, and later on I'll show you a background sheet I've included, because when you fold this one, particularly when you fold it up and you have a tab showing at the top, if you print them onto the background sheet you'll have something showing on the tab there. It won't just be plain white card. I'll show you that in a moment. There's one large envelope. There are 6 mini tags, and on this sheet there are 4 large, rather more ornate tags, and then 4 lozenges. There are 4 pockets, all ever so slightly different, and there are 4 postcards, and the postcards fit inside the pockets. This is probably the most important one, because this includes the template for how to put your journal together and the way that you stitch your thread in to hold it all in place. And then there are 2 banners or bookmarks here. It's always useful to have something like this. You can stick it in the side of your journal and slip things inside. So those are all the pages. This is a second print off I've done of the 2 file pockets, because I wanted to show you this background page. So this is included. You can print any of the items that we've had, so maybe those tags, you could print them with this as a background, or the postcards, in which case you would print your postcards off first, and then when this pops out you put it back in your printer and you print on the reverse side like this, and it means then again your postcards will have a background that isn't white but is patterned like that. Of course, if you want to leave it white and then you can cut the pieces out and you can add inking around the outside, that's great. It just gives you different options. So that is the extra background page that's included as well. I want to show you how you can print out onto tracing paper. This is just really cheap tracing paper, so that it will give you a parchment effect on the pages that you print out. I've got a wad of this. It's so cheap it doesn't even have a brand. I think this came from Amazon, and it's just described as transparent paper. I've got a white sheet underneath. This is going to be my carrier sheet when I put it through my printer, and I'm using this to help me identify exactly where the edges of my tracing paper are. Having a white sheet underneath just helps. And I've got my tape runner. What I'm going to do is run my tape runner along each edge of the page, but I'm not going to take it up to the extreme edge, because I don't want to risk any sticky stuff getting caught as it runs through my printer. Once I've done all 4 edges, I'm going to turn it over and just pop it onto my carrier sheet. And I want to try and line it up as closely as I can. Because once I've done that, that's a bit of a muddly one, but once I've done that, I'm going to run my fingers just around the outside and make sure that there's no glue. I've got 3 of these sheets prepared and ready. I'm going to load them into my printer and I'm going to send my images to print, and I'm not going to change any other settings on my printer. This is how my prints have come out. When you've got a density of ink like this, it's a good idea just to check that there's no ink residue that hasn't dried. That sheet's clean, so I know that they're good for me to go ahead and cut up. So I did these little bits and bobs with the envelope. I also did a background sheet. These are all my beautiful, really beautiful parchment style prints. I'm going to cut away all around the edges because that will cut away also the adhesive. This is still on the white backing sheet at the moment, but when I lift it away, look how pretty that is. Isn't that just beautiful? Let's take a look at the rest. This is my large background sheet, and underneath that is my envelope with the ephemera. Really pretty. So I'm going to continue cutting these out and I'll show you how they look. I've cut them out now and I wanted to show you this envelope. I think the envelope is just beautiful. So pretty. I haven't glued the inside flaps because actually this sort of transfer paper, if you give it a really good tight fold there, it doesn't need glue, and most glues will either wrinkle this edge or be visible underneath it. The only one I found that would do the job would be Beacon 3-in-1. I'm going to add it to the inside flaps to show you, but I don't want you to think that you need to have any glue there at all. I'm just going to add a tiny little dab because that's all it takes to hold it in place, and hopefully I haven't squished it so it will seal on the inside. I've got a little scrap of paper ready to make sure that glue doesn't go on the inside of my envelope, and I hope you can see that the glue is just a tiny little spot. It really isn't too visible, and this is the best that I have found for giving you an invisible join. I'm going to put this little white piece of paper inside the envelope to show you how the design looks. That's the reverse of the envelope with the little flowers, and that's how it looks from the front. I think it's a lovely little piece of ephemera. All of these I'm going to add into my journal along with my transparent piece of background paper, but I'm not going to show you the finished journal just yet because I want to show you how to make a cover. To prepare my cover, I've printed out 2 extra sheets from the kit, the background sheet and then this one here that's got the flower and a couple of little stamps, and I'm going to make a cover that will fold over the front. So to do that, I'm going to get myself some scrap fabric that I have, and I'm going to cut up my pages and we'll take it to the next stage. Punch my little holes in already using my very handy template, which is part of the kit. It saves you having to do any measuring or worrying because this tells you exactly where you need to position the holes. So that is all ready and prepared. You'll see that the background sheet is larger than the normal background sheets, and the reason for that is to make sure that it accommodates anything that you want to use this as a backing for. So I'm going to use this page so I can cut away this excess, but I'm not going to cut it right in the centre. I'm going to give myself about an inch maybe, because that will accommodate the fold and it will help strengthen the book. It will make sense when you see it. And then I have to cut this down so that it's the right height. So I'm just going to fold this in half, because I'm going to be folding it in half anyway. And I hate measuring. I think it's really boring when you have to measure things. I'm also going to fold over this piece on that natural fold where the two pages join. I don't want to just measure it up and then just cut across the top, because then I'll have an imbalance of the top and bottom. So I'm going to just put this roughly in the centre, and I'm just going to chop away from the top and from the bottom. I've cut my two sheets down, and I've cut them down so that they are deliberately shorter top and bottom than the actual journal pages. This is because I want the fabric to pop out around the edge. I'm going to glue these together. I've taken this fold, I'm going to pop that under here, and I'm going to glue that in place. I want this cover to look as if it wraps around the pages rather than completely contains the pages. This is high-tack fabric glue. So I'm going to switch. If you don't have a different type of glue for fabric, doesn't matter, keep using 3-in-1. Use whatever you have, as long as it's quite a thick glue and it's not going to lead to too much dampness or bobbling the pages here. I'm going to turn it over and press it down from the other side, because I don't want to get too much messy glue on my mat, and I can just use a waste scrap of paper to help me squish it down. And I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to use some zigzag scissors. I'm going to put my journal pages in here, my signature in there, so they will fold over like that, and then this page will fold over the top. I've got this nice edge, and I can just feather out that fabric. I don't want it to not fray, I want it to fray. And I'm folding this in because I want to show you here. Leave yourself about a 1/4 inch or a centimetre here, so don't take it all the way up to this edge, because that way you allow plenty of room for this top page to fold over when it's actually got some bulk inside it. Next thing I'm going to do is line up my journal pages on this edge here, this fold here. I'm going to punch the holes through, and I'm going to stitch it through. And if you want to see how to do that, I'm going to point you to a video where I show you exactly how to do all of that, but of course it's detailed in your template as well. Just before I complete my pages, I want to roughen them up. I want this to look quite shabby, this finished journal. So I'm going to use my messing up stuff tool, and I'm going to drag it around all of the edges. If you don't have a roughing up tool, get some scissors, use the centre of the scissors to drag down your page, and you'll get pretty much the same effect. And I've stitched my pages in here, so this is my single signature. It's stitched into this edge. You could also have stitched it into this edge if you wanted. I just wanted to do it this way, and that means that this will open like that, and we have the fabric hanging out over the edge all the way around, except for this edge where you actually don't need it for decoration. It won't be seen because it's hard up against this inside piece. I want to say something about scaling. If you can scale things on your printer, you don't have to print out the pages full size. The pages in the kit will print out to make a 5x7 journal, but if you want to make the pages smaller, you can. I've reduced this sheet that I've printed out by 10%, so this is 90% of the full size. And I also wanted to show you what would happen if you made it 50%, and so I printed out this page just to show you. I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to use it inside my journal. And I'm also going to cut these down, and I'm going to glue them on this side and this side. This is a finished journal. I'm going to give you a very quick flip through and show you how I pulled it together. First off, obviously I've got some bulldog clips. These are a recent thing that I found on Amazon. I really like them. And it meant that I could use a scrap of fabric that I used to make the cover, and I took a little strip of that, and I used my zigzag scissors and I just cut it down. It's going to fray beautifully. The way that I hold it in place is I've threaded it through this part of the threading of the signature. Hopefully you can see that. You just pop it under that large stitch. So let's see how it came out. The inside page, I've used a pocket, and it's where I've put my rather pretty envelope that we made from the transfer paper. And on this inside page as well, I've used another pocket and added more ephemera. This is the tiny little booklet cover, or the 2 pages. I shrunk this down to 50% normal size, and I'm going to use that as a little book, and I can add some plain sheets of paper in there. And I've got a bulldog clip again hanging onto the ephemera here. So if I open the journal at the front, there's also a band here, one of these bands. The ephemera is held in place this time by popping a hole through all of this and holding it together with a piece of string and a bow in the top. And I've also added a file folder in here and a postcard, so there's loads of places for you to write things down. As we flip through, you'll see more of these bands and the postcards, and again, oops, here I've used my bulldog clip to hold ephemera in place, including this really beautiful transfer printed postcard. There are more pieces of ephemera held in this pocket, and there are still lots of spaces on these empty pages for you to add your own writing. You can write over the top of these designs. They're supposed to be nice and faint so that you can do that, or of course you can glue a piece of paper over the top and write on there. This is where I've added the beautiful background printed onto the transfer paper, and it holds a postcard. And likewise here we've got another of the pockets with loads of ephemera, including the lovely, I really like those transfer printed postcards. More ephemera in here with a fancy tag, and then 2 plain pages. These were just such pretty pages, I didn't want to add anything over the top of them. And there's the other side of our background printed on transfer paper. There's another pocket with lots of ephemera in there, and then I've got the envelope here printed onto normal paper. I've cut out one of the tags, I've punched a hole, and I've just looped it onto my paper clip there. Another pocket. This is actually one of the file folders which I've used as a pocket, and more ephemera tucked in there. And then the final page, I've got one of the fancy tags, and I've got one of the little tickets, and I've used a little safety pin that I had from, I think it was from a brand of clothing, to hold those in place as well. And on my bulldog clips I've added more little strips of the calico fabric that I had left over once I'd made my cover. I've added a little bit of lace down this edge here, not so much that it sticks right out over this fold, because I need to be able to fold that nicely so that it doesn't catch, and it holds everything in place really nicely. So that's our journal. I hope that you might give the techniques a go. You don't need to buy the kit. I wanted to show you a way to make a journal cover using any nice paper or cardstock that you might have, and then any scrap fabric, because that really was a piece of old scrap calico stuff. Use whatever you have to hand, and if you do go ahead and get the kit following the link below, I hope that you enjoy it. So until we meet again, stay safe and take care.